Okay, so thank you for coming to our session. This is on building a golden customer record using Heroku. Just before we get started, a quick reminder that Salesforce is a publicly traded company and that everybody should make purchasing decisions based on the products and services that are currently available. And of course, before we get off, a big thank you to everybody that's joined us today. So thank you for making the effort to come and join us. It's great to see so many faces. And really looking forward to talking to you about Heroku today. So today's speakers, you can see there's three of us on stage here today. I'm the one on the left. So my name's Tobias. I'm a Heroku account executive based in the UK. So I look after Heroku sales for the UK and Ireland. I'm joined here today by my colleague Martin Eley and by Barry Sheehan, who's joined us from our global partner Showoff. I'll let the guys introduce themselves as we go through, but I'm going to get things started. So data really is the foundation of customer experience in today's world, right? And so I was thinking about the airline situation when I was flying over here and I had to call the airline to change a couple of things. And when we speak to businesses like airlines, for example, we have a lot of expectations of what they know about us. So, for example, I would expect them to know who I am, what I've booked, what my loyalty status might be, how many points I might have. Also things like how many complaints I've raised in the past, things like this. Very, very different types of data, but we really expect businesses to know that about us. But often what we find when we contact businesses is that we call their customer service rep and actually they don't have the data to hand. They've got to kind of pivot from screen to screen, or even worse from my perspective is when they start handing you off from, oh, I don't have the data, we need to put you onto this other team who will actually have the data. And so this is a big problem. These disconnected and siloed applications and data stores are a real problem for businesses. Okay. And so to try and solve this problem over the last few years, there's been a whole raft of new technologies that have come out. Some really great technologies like, Snowflake and Databricks in this kind of space. But businesses still seem to be having this same problem. So I'd like to have a look at why and kind of how we got there. So to illustrate this, I wanted to take a step back a little bit and talk about the world of personal tech first. So if you think about your iPhone or your MacBook, in the world of personal tech, when you want to upgrade to the iPhone 16 or whatever the latest one is that you want to get, you tend to trade in or, put the old one in a drawer, you give it away, you do something with it, and you only end up using the new one, right? For businesses, this just isn't the case. And so businesses tend to accumulate technology over the years. In the past, I've worked a lot with financial services, and banks still run a lot of mainframe, right? And that's great, and it's working, and maybe let's not touch that and kind of carry on. But this problem of disconnected and siloed data stores is really, something that's everywhere because of the way that businesses accumulate technology. This is compounded by things like, mergers and acquisitions, for example. So if you merge with another company or you acquire a new company, you also acquire their data stores, their applications, their services, and their data. Another thing that really compounds this issue is, siloed teams, for example. So as businesses start to grow, they have many different types of teams, and sometimes these teams are too siloed and they don't talk to each other. And so what you might find is that one team has, a solution for, maybe it's a data store of some kind, and there's another team who have a requirement for something like that. And if they're not talking to each other, then they go out and they buy whatever the latest thing is from a different vendor. The other challenge around this is if you don't look at data governance properly. Okay. So when you've got various disconnected and broad systems that are, separated across different places, this can be, a real challenge as well for data governance. And so if you don't look at things holistically, you really don't create any kind of standardization. And so everything looks a different shape, size, and color. Okay. So it's kind of clear that this is happening a lot in various different places. And of course, if your systems are disjointed, your interaction with the customer is also going to be disjointed. Okay. Okay. And so what's the impact of this? From a customer perspective, of course, this is going to lead to poor customer experience. So this analogy of calling a service rep and being passed from one section to the other or one team to the other, that's obviously a bad thing for customer experience. But also it's bad business value. And I'm a big believer in technology having a very clear business value. For me, it needs to either be making your customers happier, making you more money, making you more efficient in how you use resources, maybe making you more secure, or perhaps, increasing or improving your time to market so that you can get ahead of competitors. If the systems that you have aren't doing this, really what you've got is kind of legacy and technical debt. So I think for me, that's one of the big things is, you end up with science projects. But let's have a look through some of these on the slide here. So the first one, inaccurate data. Of course, if I call the airline about my ticket and I say, I've accidentally deleted the email, I've just booked a ticket, but I've deleted the email. Can you remind me when my flight is going to be? And if they tell me it's on Wednesday, when actually it's on Tuesday, and I turn up to the airport at the wrong time, clearly that's a massive issue. So inaccurate data is not excusable from a consumer perspective. It's also really, really important to have accurate data for this new thing. I don't know if anybody's heard of it, AI, right? So AI is top of mind for so many people, so many businesses. It's kind of everywhere, and that's fantastic. But let's say you're trying to do something like, have a large language model connect with your data, which is a lot of what's happening now, so that large language model can have a conversation with you, but know about your data. If your data is inaccurate, then that large language model is going to, tell you absolute nonsense, to be honest. And this is the same for things like AI, ML as well. So if you're looking at trending, you've got to have accurate data ready to go. Otherwise, these amazing technologies that you purchase to look at that data, you're going to get a really bad return on investment. Right? The other thing on here is data bottlenecks. So if you have lots of disconnected and siloed data stores, then there's an inherent time delay in ingesting this data from various different sources. Okay? And for some things, I don't mind waiting. So I'm happy if my loyalty points take a few hours or maybe a day to update. That's okay. For some things, it's okay. But if I book my ticket through a partner website and then I call the airline straight away because I've made a mistake or I've put some kind of erroneous data in, and if they say to me, well, the data's not here yet, we have to wait for it to load into the system. Anybody had that before? This is, it's definitely happened to me. And it's really annoying. So this is another kind of thing that creates frustration for customers and a bad experience. Of course, having an incomplete picture of your customer is also very, very challenging. So you can't do things like using those great insights and this 360 view of your customer to recommend services that are going to be interesting for them and tailored to them. This incomplete picture is also potentially going to lead to, employee overlap. So you might have, one team looking at the loyalty section and one team looking at the complaint section. And somebody might raise a massive complaint, but then you're going to send them marketing emails anyway. That's potentially not a good experience for the customer. So inaccurate data bottlenecks, and an incomplete picture. These are some of the kind of big impacts that you can have in this space. Okay, but CDPs are supposed to fix this, right? And this is kind of the promise of some of the CDPs out there. And CDPs are absolutely great, but think about it. How many of your service reps are going to be logging in to something like a Snowflake or a Databricks, right? It just isn't the system that they're going to be logging in. And so the data isn't necessarily in the hands of the right people at the right time. The other challenge with CDP type systems for this kind of space is the issue of concurrency. So data has to be ingested from various different sources, as we kind of mentioned earlier. There's potentially a delay in that piece. And so being able to build real-time experiences on top of that data is just not necessarily possible, okay? And so we have here system of record and systems of reference. So CDPs fit into this kind of area of systems of reference, but I'm just going to go through and highlight kind of the differences and what we mean by each topic. So a system of record is your primary and authoritative view of data. Okay, this is for things that are critical to businesses' operations, critical to compliance and things like that. So some examples might be perhaps a contract stored in a CRM system. You might have supply chain details stored in an ERP system, or maybe employee bank wire details that are stored in an HR system like Workday. These are systems of record. This is operational data, and it needs to be primary, authoritative, trustworthy, and truthful. Systems of reference, on the other hand, are great for a different reason. So they provide a broad and aggregated view of various different sources. And so, of course, that's really then playing into the business insights kind of section. So this is, where you'll be able to look at things like clickstream data or behavioral data from your website. And so, let's say last year, perhaps I booked a holiday and it was an all-inclusive holiday for me and my family. And then this year, I might be clicking on the website and looking at different locations that I might be interested in. If that business has a 360-degree view of me, then they will be able to send me a tailored offer for all-inclusive holidays at that resort, perhaps. So this is the type of thing that we would see in systems of reference. But really, neither are enough on their own, okay? So we need that system of record for that consistent source of truth. We need it to be as real-time as possible. But having a system of reference on its own isn't enough either. You need that operational data to be able to transact against, to be able to use for compliance reasons and use for real-time processing. So neither are really enough on their own anymore. Systems of reference are also great because, often they're read-only. So then you can start to open up systems of reference to, much more of the business and have a broader view there as well. So neither of them are enough on their own, but they each have their own benefits. So of course we need both, is the answer. So we need our system of record for that speed and that accuracy, and we need our system of reference for that broad view of business insights. But how are we going to build that system of record? And so as we've been talking about this session and kind of running through it, one of the questions we've had is, well, isn't that what MDM would be great at? And maybe we could do this on an MDM solution. When we think about an MDM solution, it's master data management, and one of the requirements of that is having a master record. So having that golden customer record is a requirement from the start. So how do we build that golden customer record? And of course, you could customize an MDM solution. Most of them are customizable. But as we saw on the slide earlier, where we've got all these disconnected sources and kind of this craziness, businesses have very different ways of doing it. And so each customization is going to be very specific, and it's going to be quite heavy, and it's going to include all of the different processes that you need to include as a business. Okay. So we absolutely can do it in an MDM solution, but actually then it's going to be difficult to scale, it's going to be difficult to patch, and your return on investment might not be great. So how are we going to build that golden customer record? I'm glad you asked. So this brings us on to Heroku. And Heroku is a fantastic platform for being able to do this kind of thing. So if anybody doesn't know what Heroku is Salesforce's platform as a service. So this is a platform to be able to run code and build applications, microservices, APIs, customer experience platforms, portals, whatever it happens to be. It's a platform for code. So I know Salesforce has a lot of low code and no code technology. Heroku we describe as being pro code. And so developers can use the languages that they're used to, that they're familiar with, that they like. Everything from JavaScript to Go and everything in between. So it gives you a lot of control, and it gives you a lot of portability as well. So a couple of things I wanted to highlight on this slide before we go into some of the more technical detail with Martin. A couple of things I think are interesting about Heroku for this use case. So firstly, it's the abstraction of a lot of complexity. So let's say you have an idea for a new application, and you hire a developer, or you're a developer and you write some code. That's not the end of it, right? To get that code working in production, or to get it working somewhere useful, you have to figure out the whole IaaS layer first, right? So where's my compute? How do I figure it out? What operating systems am I going to use? How am I going to patch it? How am I going to network these technologies together? What am I doing about storage? How am I going to do all of my DevOps processes and pipelines, and what technology am I going to use to do that? And so Heroku abstracts away all of that complexity. So it's an opinionated platform where your developers can write code, put it into Heroku, and then there's a lot of automation, and out comes the service or the application at the end. So being able to move really, really quickly, prototype fast, this is one of the strengths of Heroku. The other thing that I would like to highlight that I think is really important for this use case specifically is some of our data services at Heroku. So part of this portfolio, there's something called Heroku Connect, and it's very, very, very commonly used in our Heroku customers. And so this syncs the data from Salesforce CRM into a Heroku Postgres database in almost real time. Okay. And so this is amazing because it's a bidirectional sync. So if you update something in this database, it goes to there and vice versa. And why that's kind of useful for a lot of our customers is that you can then build real-time experiences on top of that data. Okay, so if you wanted to build a customer website, customer-facing portal that then knows about this data, so you can pull in the contacts, you can pull in products, whatever you've got stored in your CRM. And so that's great for those use cases, but of course it's useful for this case as well. So we have a lot of people that use Heroku Connect to pull the data from Salesforce CRM into that Postgres database, and then use the Elastic Compute layer to write a few lines of code to process that data in a very custom way. And so I think that is really the strong use case for being able to build a golden customer record on top of Heroku. And I'm going to hand over to Martin now to go into a little bit more depth and some of the more technical pieces. Okay, thank you.
Thanks very much, Tobias.
The process that we would go through to build a golden customer record on Heroku. So there are three key stages that we need to go through. First, we need to think about how we're going to ingest data. How are we going to fetch that data into the platform? So how are we going to take that data from your source systems? Then once we have that data, how are we going to build those processes? How are we going to build the processes that start to transform, cleanse, and merge that data into that golden customer record? And then once we've done that, we want to think about how do we get that data then back out to our users? How do we get that data into the applications that your users, your customers, your employees are using on a day-to-day basis? So let's dive in. Let's start off and look at how we go about ingesting data. So Heroku gives us a really, really broad spectrum of integration patterns that we can work with. So up at the top there, we've got ETL. So maybe we're working with kind of flat files. We might be working with a mainframe. How do we get that data from the source system into Heroku? So we could be using an ETL tool. So something like Informatica, or maybe we're using MuleSoft to do that. But we're more interested really in real-time integration. So as Tobias said earlier, we don't like that kind of batch processing where it causes that latency. So Heroku gives us the ability to build, deploy, and scale APIs, microservices. And maybe we are using MuleSoft to do it. So we can use MuleSoft to generate those APIs. We can also use MuleSoft Flex Gateway as well to provide an API gateway, and all of that can then be run and scaled on the Heroku platform. There's also a trend now that more and more organizations are moving towards these event-driven kind of integration patterns. So Heroku can provide you with Heroku Kafka. So if you're looking at doing things like pub-sub type architectures, fire and forget, and you're looking at decoupling architectures, so Heroku can give you Kafka. And then finally, we also have a suite of connectors. So maybe I've got data in Sales Cloud, Service Cloud, Marketing Cloud, or Data Cloud. So we have those connectors that allow you to bring that data from those systems into Heroku. So you've seen that there's an awful lot of options available to us to bring that data in from those source systems. So what do we do once we bring that data into Salesforce? And how do we go about building those processes, writing that code that transforms that data and generates that golden customer record? So the first thing we're going to want to do is we need to save that data. We need to persist that data somewhere. And we're going to persist it in Heroku Postgres. Now, why are we choosing Postgres? So Postgres is one of the most desired databases at the moment, with 49% of developers choosing to use Postgres at the moment. And why choose Postgres? So Postgres gives developers an awful lot of tools that allow them to do things with data. So, for example, it allows you to do things like fuzzy searching. So if I'm merging two records together and I need to be able to do a fuzzy search to see if this customer already exists, and then can merge those records together, I can do fuzzy matching, I can do advanced text search, I can even do vector search. And why should we be using a Postgres database running on Heroku? Well, Heroku provides you with a highly resilient and highly available database. So your data is well looked after, it's available, and it's also secure as well. So with Shield, you can do things like encryption at rest. So it really is, it's the developer's database of choice, and running it on Heroku gives you an awful lot of flexibility. So now, my developers can write code, they've got access to all of the things that they would need to start to transform all of that raw data into that golden customer record. So what's next? We've now built our golden customer record. We've got that customer record in a Postgres database. Now we can start thinking about the applications and experiences we build around that. So again, Heroku gives you a really, really broad canvas for your developers to build experiences on. So whether they're using JavaScript or Java or Python, or if they're using frameworks like React or Angular, you can build, deploy, scale, and run those applications on Heroku. So we've got some great examples. So a European luxury car manufacturer, they've built an application that runs entirely on Heroku, where you can design your dream car, and then I can interact with my local dealership. I can get real-time production updates, so I'm still staying engaged in the production process, and I can access exclusive content. And all of that is being run on the Heroku platform. We also have a labour union in the Midwest as well, who are using Heroku's streamlined DevOps to be able to deliver new features to over 30,000 of its members. And that means that they're helping those members get access to benefits, and they're being able to release new features at a much higher cadence than they have in the past. But we also want to think about how we get data into the hands of employees. So how do we get data to our service agents who are using Service Cloud or any other employee? And for that, we have Heroku Connect. So Heroku Connect allows us to take that data, that golden customer record that we've built in Heroku, and synchronize it with Service Cloud. So that data is immediately available in Service Cloud. So my agents then can find the customer record, they can serve the customer. But also that data is then available to things like Agentforce. I can use it in resource augmented generation, so in prompt builder. So it also starts to release even more ROI from applications like Service Cloud, because it's getting that really high quality data there that you need to be able to do these kind of AI things. And also I can use it in workflow, so I can just start to build those workflow automations. So what that means then is I'm actually enabling administrators in Salesforce and my developers who are using Heroku, I'm enabling them to come together and collaborate around high quality data and use the best of the no code and low code platform alongside the best of the pro code Heroku platform. But it doesn't stop there, because once we start to build these experiences, so once we get this data into Service Cloud and into Marketing Cloud and into those customer facing applications, we actually start to generate a lot more data. So from my web apps, from my website, from my mobile applications, I'm going to start generating all of that behavioral data. So what pages, what content, what buttons are my users clicking? And that tells me kind of what my users are interested in and what content they're accessing. From my marketing campaigns, I'm able to tell what emails people are opening and kind of how they're reacting to those campaigns and what pages on my website they're visiting. And we can start to bring all of that data together with our golden customer record in Data Cloud. So we have connectors into Data Cloud now, so we can load that golden customer record into Data Cloud, or we can use zero copy into Data Cloud as well and start merging it with all of that other data. And what that means then is my service agents are able to do things like next best action. They've suddenly got access to that 360-degree view of the customer, so they can start to offer that highly personalized experience. And as we said before, we can also start activating that data in things like Agentforce or in Prompt Builder. Our marketeers as well. So our marketeers then are going to get access to all of that rich information alongside that golden customer record. So they're going to be able to do things like segmentation, generate insights, and generate the data that they need to be able to have that hyper-personalized relationship with their customers. So now I'd like you to hand you over to Barry from Showoff, who's going to take you through some really amazing customer stories. Barry.
Thanks, Martin. So, my name is Barry Sheehan. I'm the Chief Commercial Officer at Showoff. I'm just going to give a quick background of who we are and then run through some customer use cases and where we're moving to grow. So, in our logo there you'll see a sheep. So, the origin story behind Showoff, Shane, our CEO, is a farmer back home in Ireland. He sold 80 sheep to raise the seed capital to buy 2 MacBooks, and the guys set about creating an IT company. So since then we've built on Heroku, used it, leveraged it across the world globally for many, many customers. One such customer is National Express. So they're the leading bus company in the UK. They had a problem around data. They had legacy siloed systems, they had duplicate data, ultimately it was resulting in poor customer experience. Sales agents didn't know what the marketeers were saying to the customer. The marketing team didn't know what the service agents were saying to the customer. There was data in different systems, and ultimately that was costing the company money. They weren't able to segment properly, they weren't able to do targeted marketing, and ultimately it was leading to a poor customer experience. So that's where we came on board. So we helped the guys in National Express migrate their data from a legacy data warehouse. We moved it to Postgres on Heroku, and then we had to cleanse and dedupe the data into a golden customer record for all intents and purposes to help create that 360-degree view of the customer, which then we could link back into Sales Cloud, Service Cloud, and Marketing Cloud, which gave the operational team in National Express better visibility to their customer. What that allowed them to do is reduction in time in terms of call times with agents and customers, increased in revenue, and then ultimately did minimal downtime because of the best of breed system which we put on Heroku. And once you have that golden customer record, creating a seamless customer experience with Heroku is also one of the real advantages of the platform. One such customer that we've done that with in the UK is QuickFit. So QuickFit are a tire company, 100-year-old company, as you can imagine, a mix of best-of-breed SaaS solutions, but they also had legacy data, both on-premise, in the cloud. They had a challenge where they wanted to give a best-of-breed solution to new users. They had guys that were used to Spotify, Netflix, accessing things on their mobile phone. They had legacy technology, they had Salesforce data. How did they bring it all together to give that seamless customer experience? So that's where we came in. We used MuleSoft to integrate the legacy data. We used connectors back into Salesforce with a Heroku to access the Salesforce data. And then our design team put a best-of-breed mobile app in place, which kind of increased retention, increased the subscription people using the system, and then ultimately increased revenue. And finally, here's a US customer where we've built a full platform for them. The guys in Mowat's were the IT arm of a labor union in the Midwest, the local My 150, but they had an issue with their members. They had over 30,000 union members that weren't engaging with the platform, which was leading to the guys reverting back to manual processes and sometimes using good old-fashioned paperwork. So that's where we got involved. So we worked with their operational team to figure out, well, how does a union work? What do their members want to see? And how can we rapidly improve that platform and continue to evolve it? So we used the Heroku platform to build a full platform for the guys in My 150. We integrated it back into Sales Cloud, and then it centralized all the interactions back and forth with a union member. As well as the experience, security was pivotal in this implementation. So there was a lot of private information in terms of union members, healthcare, pension benefits, training records. So we had to follow a lot of security compliance in terms of implementing a solution that was going to be fit for purpose there. And then ultimately, the technology is all well and good, but the users need to be able to use them. So that's the last piece in the jigsaw, was user-centric design. Our team of designers worked to give a best-in-class app that was going to increase the monthly engagements with the platform. As you can see, monthly active users have kind of really improved there. One other benefit of moving to the Heroku platform, there was a significant reduction in the licensing cost that they were paying. We found that they're really benefiting from putting that platform on Heroku. As there's a DevOps capability in Heroku, we're garnering feedback from the users, and we're kind of constantly improving the platform based on feedback that we're getting from the customers there. And that's what we're really seeing the benefit there, is that we're able to iterate, improve on the platform over time. With that, I'm going to hand you back to Martin, and thanks for speaking to me, guys.
Thanks very much, Barry. So what have we heard this afternoon? So you heard Tobias talk about the importance of data, but also how a lot of organizations kind of get into this situation where they do have that fragmented data. But we've also heard about how Heroku is helping organizations start to unify that data, bring that data together, and how then we're able to use that data to deliver kind of better ROI out of Salesforce. We're enabling marketeers and service agents to build those much stronger personalized relationships, and how we can start to utilize that data across multiple channels. So I'd like to say thank you very much.